Hey there, singers. This is Sarah Ramsey from the Vocal Lab, and I'm thrilled to share something special with you. Are you ready to take your vocal performance to the next level? Introducing Encore, the Performance Incubator, a transformative 12-week online program designed specifically for singers like you who want to master their voice and command the stage. With Encore, you'll experience personalized laser coaching that targets your unique vocal challenges, and you'll learn in a supportive community environment. This program covers everything from mastering breath control and vocal techniques to developing a confident stage presence and connecting emotionally with your audience. And the best part? We're offering a special beta price for this first run. It's just $600 for the entire 12-week program. Plus, if you're a Vocal Lab member, you get an additional discount. So don't miss this opportunity to transform your singing and join a community of passionate vocalists. Registration is open now and closes June 7th. Head on over to sarahramsey.com/encore to secure your spot. Let's make this your best performance yet with Encore.
Few years ago I did the Spotify Wrapped, and like I was my own top artist, on my list of like, these are the artists you listen to most. Top for me was Jonny Tobin. And so if that's you, and like, that's okay. Like I think it's good to listen to your own music. And to me, you should enjoy what you make. I think that if you put something out and you're like, I hate this, it's out. I've met people that have that experience, but I think it should be a goal to try and create music that you really love listening to. Because if you love it, someone else will.
Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I'm Sarah Ramsey, and this show aims to pull back the curtain on the entertainment industry, where veterans give up-and-coming artists some of the information they wish they'd had when they were just starting out. Sort of a music industry primer, if you will. Thanks for joining us on the Vocal Lab. This is actually part 2 of our interview. So if you haven't caught part 1 yet, head back to the episode right before this one and get all caught up, and then join us back here. We'll see you soon. Let's talk about the realities of life on tour, because you have toured actually quite a lot and in lots of different places.
Yeah.
And I talked to lots of singers about this, but you are singing, and there's impact for players as well as singers. Things like lifestyle and, hauling gear, depending on the level that you're touring at. If you are your own roadie, or if you have other people helping with that or whatever, but all of those things, sleep, being in loud environments, all those things can actually have an impact on performance.
Yeah. So many years of touring just flashed in my brain. I would say the first couple like longer tours I did were really bad. Sorry to anyone was on those if you're watching. I think it's important to know who you're going on the road with and not just tour. Like, at this point, I don't know if I would just do something with a complete group of strangers. Unless I could really get a sense for it before, I would probably want to have like multiple Zoom meetings or something, because I find like the first couple longer tours I did were with people I didn't know. And then some of the folks were really good. And then some of the personalities, like on this one in particular, the main person running the show was really bad to work with and like volatile. And it was horrific for everyone involved. There were probably like 10 people involved, and like, it was like this one person versus everyone vibe. And we were in like terrace, and it was awful. The morale was horribly low. So I think that's the first step to taking care of yourself on tour, is actually like making sure you're in the right tour with the right people, and not just saying yes because of money or because you need the gig, but really like realistically looking and saying like, is it worth taking a month or 2 or longer with people I don't know, and the risk of that.
Because a month or 2 can feel like a decade or 2.
Yes, it can. But that being said, the last, I would say 6 years, every tour I've done was with amazing people, and people that are, I would say, like road warrior types that are just always positive as much as possible. always honest, always good at like taking space for themselves or like giving people space when needed. I think that's really important on the road is carving out time for yourself and having alone time / like time to just do whatever you want to do. And because you're on a tour, you're already so locked into a schedule and you're sort of being told where to go, what to do. I know on one tour that I did, I like kind of messed up my back because we were in a van and it was like this the whole time.
Oh.
And we were driving from here to Ottawa and back in a van, and it was like this the whole time.
No leg room.
And so my back was like that. And then I was also doing all my own gear. And I remember we had a very fast setup time at, I think it was at Canadian Music Week. It was one of those showcasey quick, like, and I remember picking up my Moog because I was doing bass stuff and like getting up, jumping onto a stage, picking up the Moog. And then like, I felt my back, like I couldn't actually straighten my back. Like I was like this and my back was just like locked like that.
Oh.
And I like kind of figured it out. But then for most of the tour, like the remaining like 10 days or whatever, it was really bad. So I think having, I know a lot of festivals actually do have like free massage tents. So if you're on a tour and you're going to festivals, please
search those out.
The massages. Like a lot of folk festivals do that. So things like that are good. And to me, this is just me, but I always like to know when I'm going to be eating next on the road because if I don't have a sense, like, okay, we have an 8-hour drive and then we have to go straight to sound check and then, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I like to know when the next meal will be because if you don't know when that is and you're someone who needs food for fuel, which we all do.
We actually, that's all 100% of people.
And yeah, that and hydration. So, even if you just get like a granola bar or like an energy bar or something, like having that. And then also, on downtime, I really think naps are important. So yeah, I think those are kind of the basic things, but it really all starts with ensuring that the people are people you want to be on the road with. And I can say now, like to anyone I've toured with now recently in the last couple of years, I love all of you and it's been great. Very much a lot better than some of the prior experiences.
We've all got those road stories.
We
right?
do. We all do. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's, I don't regret any of it, honestly, because I've learned even from those experiences. And so
I learned that you have to make sure that the hotel gives you a room that somebody else doesn't still have the key to.
Oh, geez.
When you are a woman staying by yourself in a hotel room.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's sketchy.
Yeah. That.
I hope that hotel is not in business anymore.
That was back in the days where I was just in a little bar duo.
Yeah.
And I think it was Port McNeil or Alert Bay or somewhere up north there. And the gentleman from the night before had not returned his key and I was having a nap before we went on. And I woke up with him standing over my bed, intoxicated.
No.
And I mean, I got him out of my room without actually any altercation, but it was a scary moment.
Yeah. And then like to have that, and then it's like, oh yeah, we got to go perform now. It's like traumatic thing happened. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Let's talk about the differences when you are the artist versus when you are working as a sideman or a band member for another artist. Like what's different about those two roles? For emerging artists who may not yet be experienced enough to have learned some of the finer nuance of like some of the etiquette and things like that, or how to show up in different roles. Do you want to talk about the different expectations and requirements?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, when I'm the artist, like the way I create my music is just 95% of it is just all me doing it. Producing it all, mixing it all. So in that setting, I feel very free and I can kind of just like, I don't have to consult anyone else for decisions. I can just make the decision then and there. I think, and then when I'm, I think it's a lot more, there's a lot more steps when I'm working with an artist because it's sort of like, I'm doing something or creating an idea and then it's like, okay, is this what you want? Is this? And so I try to ask a lot of questions and try to get on the same page. I think I've been in situations where artists don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And I've brought ideas, and that can be frustrating because I remember one instance where I was doing like probably 8 different iterations of an idea, and they're like, no, it's not that, no. And they couldn't tell me what it was, what they wanted. And it was very frustrating. I just was like, okay, well, you do it then, because it's like, I don't know what you want at this point. And like, you may not have done enough homework coming into this session to get a sense of what you want. And if you have a very specific thing you're seeking out, but you aren't able to convey that or show someone, I think that's a problem, because people can't read your mind, maybe unless it's your brother, but but like I think in general people can't do that and just understand, especially like if the artist doesn't have theory knowledge. Totally fine not to, but if you don't, you have to be able to like have a way to explain what you're looking for if you have a specific idea in mind, where some artists don't, and they're just open at where the wind blows, which is also, I love those kind of artists too, because you're sort of just creating something together and everything's new and exciting. But it can be hard if you're as me coming into a session for another artist. It's sort of like, if I feel like I'm hitting a wall creatively and you're just saying no to everything and you're not giving any constructive idea on what to do, that can be an issue. So I would say for like artists coming up, really think about what you want. Like if you bring in a guitar player, have a sense of what you want them to do, or else just let them do whatever. If you know that they're good and you like their playing, let them just do their thing, and trust that whoever you're working with, like if you have a producer or something, like you can just kind of like splice up their guitar and like, get if you're bringing in really talented creative people to work on your project, let them do their thing, trust them, and then you can do a lot in the editing process after the fact as well,
Well, and I think that if you don't have like the theory knowledge or whatever to be able to articulate it in that language, that's fine. But having in that case, coming in and having, even if you have like reference tracks from other artists where you say, I'm going for something like this, or this vibe, or I really like that sound, or I like this melodic pattern. And then like, obviously you're not going to rip that directly, but like it gives, as a player coming in, it gives you reference points to work from, rather than just starting from a giant black hole.
Yeah. Which I've been there, and I've been there when the black hole was, oh, here's a black hole and you have a paintbrush and you can do whatever you want. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
But if it's a black hole and they have a paintbrush, but they don't know what colors they're actually using on the paintbrush, they're like, I don't know. Oh no, this all sucks. Everything you're doing sucks. Like, that's horrible as a creative person coming in. So don't do that, please, artists. But references are also great for sure. Yeah.
And then if you are working as the artist and you are like hiring a band, you want to talk a little bit about being the role of the band leader in that sense? Because that's a whole different skill set too.
Yeah. I mean, I think I want to, for me, this is just me, but I want people that like my music, that aren't just there like a hired gun feeling. There's a lot of hired guns out there, but I feel like the type of music I make, the place that I'm creating it from, it's very special to me. And so I want it to hold meaning for the people playing it with me. So I think that's to me with the first kind of step of hiring and picking people is like, if you're looking for, before you say, I'm just thinking in the position of a new artist, like before you say, oh yeah, are you free June 13th? The gig is 6 to 8 p.m., $300. Like if they don't know you or your music, send them the music first and say like, here, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And are you interested in this music? I have some gigs for you if you are, but like, let's get to know people a bit.
Yeah.
And obviously it's one thing to just kind of be a side person and be brought in. That's cool. But I think like for me, I really want to build a foundation with people and not just have like rotating cast characters. And then beyond that, I like playing with people that are going to bring new things out of the music that I wouldn't have thought of doing, or like they bring an energy to it that's really soulful and flavorful, and they have huge chops, but they aren't always using them, or they're not always like, I have to do flashy stuff, but they can when needed. So those are the kind of players that I like having. Yeah.
As an independent artist, what have you found to be the most useful things in your career in terms of like networking and developing relationships and that developing the relationships that lead to opportunities, or playlisting, or getting in the right room with the right people?
Yeah. I think being open to collab with a lot of people is good. A couple of songs that I've worked on that have done really well on streaming and playlisting and stuff, it's been with like 2, 3, 4 artists. And a lot of it has just been remote work, like collabs, like virtual, and like someone has a bass line and an A section and drums, and then they're like, can you add a melody over this and come up with the chords for a B section, and like things like that, like sending it back and forth. For me at least, social media has been a great tool, and I view it for me as like a portfolio. Like when you go to my Instagram, you can instantly see like, this is what I do. This is the sound of the stuff that I make. These are some of the things that I've done with other people, and like you get a feel for like my vibe and some of the reach that I have, I guess. And so I think for artists, it's that's a great tool if you can get into it. I know some people hate social media, but maybe it's a necessary evil in some ways.
And actually, I just want to point out, because you just put up a post to that point that I think is absolutely on the money. And your point, I'm paraphrasing, you can clarify.
Okay.
But your point in the post was, if you are an artist and you have a social media page and it doesn't have any of your, and you can't, like, as a person going to that social media page, if you can't immediately listen to some music, see some photos, see some video of what you do, what are you doing?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've had different moments where I feel like that really is obvious to me. But yeah, I had a recent thing I saw. Someone was like, what do you think of this artist? Like, I have a tour with someone I work with, and we're looking for someone else to do like a co-headlining thing with. And they were like, what do you think of this artist? And I went to their page, and it said DJ, rapper, dancer or something. There was like one video of them DJing with horrible audio. There was no videos of them dancing, no videos of them rapping. I couldn't even hear their releases. And they posted about, I've released an album. But on their Instagram, there was no single clip of any music. So I was like, I don't even know what genre this is. This could be anything. And like, sure, I could Google them. But I think that it's so important just immediately to have on your thing, even just like two or three posts with some audio and just a little taste of what you do. Because if you don't have that, I think a lot of people nowadays are in this feeling of like, oh yeah, it's the hype. We're generating hype, and it's all just this hype based thing. And it's like, they're going to find us, and like, we're cool. And like, we're too aloof to like, we want to be this thing. And it's like, you don't really have that luxury now. Maybe you could be aloof like in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But I think now, when it's so much stuff is DIY, you kind of have to believe in yourself and show people why they should care and why they should. And I think a lot of people are worth caring about. It's just that, some people, you go to their page and it's all just like model photo shoot with, and that's fine. But even within that, you could attach audio to that. Yep. Just to say, hey, here's my new song. Here's a sexy photo of me, but here's also the song. But a lot of people don't have that. And it's sort of like, yeah, to me, that's definitely, I think I put on the post, like, this is a major pet peeve.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not attacking anyone with that. I'm just sort of like, this is to me, it's like in your own best interest to kind of like to have that stuff happening. Right.
Well, that's actually why I wanted to bring it up, because I think it's like, in days gone by, we always had an EPK ready to go, right? An electronic press kit, where you had your sort of resume, your music resume or whatever, and your demo reel and your photos, and it was all tied up in a nice little electronic bow, and you could send the link to somebody and they could download whatever they needed. I think those get used less and less. They still exist, but they get used less and less. But they are being replaced by social media and a link in bio, right? So especially on Instagram, you can pin 3 posts to the top. So why you wouldn't be using those to pin 3 posts that show what you do? And actually, that doesn't matter what industry you're in, but especially if you are a performer of any variety, pinning posts that show what you do, and then having a link in bio that's going to take you to your Spotify or your Apple Music, your website, your whatever, like, make it really, really as easy as possible for people to find you and what you do and fall in love with you.
Yeah. And you can still be the mysterious artist. Like, I had some people, when I post that, I had some people say, oh, well, maybe they want a mystery around themselves. And I was like, yeah, you can still have that though. Like, you can create intrigue with, like, maybe with the captions you're using, or like, your visual aesthetic. But I think if you have an Instagram page and you want people to see your page, but then you have it closed off where someone, like, if you can't tell what genre someone is, like, if you go to someone's page and you're like, you could be a metal musician, you could be an R&B, you could be hip hop, you could be classical. Like, I have no sense of you. That's, to me, it, like, just and it's not even a massive adjustment. It's just like a little tweak.
Yep.
You could take like 30 minutes and like do some little things, and that would just really help an outsider looking in that's getting into your world. Because we're all creating our own worlds, and it's like, what is someone's entry point into your world going to be, and how are you bringing them into that? That's, to me, what the goal should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for, emerging artists too, who are probably, frankly, even more aware of this than I am, but just in case you're not, what your social media numbers look like count. If you're getting interest from a label, or you're getting interest from management or whatever, first thing they're going to look at is what your socials look like and what your following is. So the best thing that you can do for yourself in that realm is to set your socials up well, which means having your stuff on there, right? So it seems like a no-brainer, but it apparently isn't always. So I think it is good to actually articulate it.
Sometimes it's funny. Like, I've had a few things in the last couple months where it's like, I've said something, like they've asked for advice, or I've teaching them something, and then I say something that to me, it's like, oh, I've been doing this for like 10 years. But then they're like, oh, whoa, I never thought of that. So I'm trying to really realize that, there's certain things that maybe aren't actually no-brainers. And maybe some people just need that little extra push, or that little, like, oh, this is the wall. I was hitting a wall, and this is why. And then it kind of unlocks. So hopefully someone hearing this can.
It's funny because I teach a lot of singers that are in that sort of emerging artist era of their career. And I come into a lot of pieces like that where you think, oh, this is just logical information that everybody knows, but realize, well, there was a time I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Actually. And that was actually sort of the genesis of this whole podcast, was like, nobody tells you the things that you don't yet know to ask. So how can we make that information more accessible to people? One of the funny things that came up, and I don't even remember how it came up, but I had a student who was like signed to a label and starting to get more exposure and doing shows where like people were showing up. And anyway, at the point in their career where they were starting to get asked for autographs. And I said to them, have you like figured out what your signature is yet? And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, I know how to sign my name. I'm like, no. You don't want to sign it the same way you sign at the bank. You don't want to be given that signature out to all your fans. Yeah. You don't want your legally tendered signature being how you sign a fan photo.
Yeah. Totally.
You need to have a signature that's your like artist signature. That's not your legal signature.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's funny. I signed something for someone once, and I immediately learned it from that because they were like, "Oh, this." They literally said, "Oh, this signature sucks," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay." So I redid it. But yeah, that's actually a really good point, and I don't think I haven't seen enough people saying that. So that's great. That's a really great point. Yes.
Yeah. And just things like that like you don't know to ask until all of a sudden you realize it's kind of too late and you've done something. Yeah. You've put your foot in it or whatever.
Yeah. Permanent ink. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that you often see like missed or misunderstood by up and coming artists? That's a really broad question. I know.
Yeah. Well, the thing we were just talking about definitely, as far as like, I think, and this could show my generational disconnect as a millennial versus Gen Z, because I sometimes feel like Gen Z will do this like kind of like irony, like I'm very cool. I'm just like a loner or whatever. And then they'll do like, it's almost aloof, but I don't know if they're actually doing it out of irony, or if they're just shy. But yeah, not showing your personality or showing what you do. Mm-hmm. Here's a big one for me that I think a lot of people don't do is they make a song, finish the song, and then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, let's release the song next week. And it's just like, you're literally missing out on potentially hundreds of thousands of streams if you do that. I've actually worked with an artist that did this, where when they uploaded it, they actually set the release date incorrectly. And so then it was ineligible for to be pitched to editorial playlists on Spotify. And that song almost was like not thrown in the trash, but like the reach of the song, where it could have gone, just like flopped. And so
can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah.
Like
totally.
How does that happen with the dates?
So the thing I always say to people is like, you should be if you're releasing it yourself, I would hope that like if you're signed to a label that they know all this and they're just doing their due diligence with distro and everything. But let's say you're just putting it up yourself on DistroKid or TuneCore, CDBaby and stuff. You need to set your release date like at least, to me, I would say like 2 months from when you upload it, at least, or a month and a half ish.
Okay.
You need time for it to get onto the platforms and be processed. And once it's actually on the platforms, from there, like Spotify has this Spotify for Artists app. Yeah. You can submit to editorial playlists, which are the playlists that everyone wants to get on, like the ones that have 1 million followers. And so if some of these playlists, if your song goes on there, you will automatically have like, 200,000 streams from it just by way of like how much reach that has. Yeah. Which like that can generate some passive income for you. Mm-hmm. That can generate like more listeners, more fans, more followers. But if you're submitting a song online and you're like, oh, I'm just putting it up, I don't care, like 2 weeks from now, it just won't have time to go through all the process. So like DistroKid, it will most likely ensure that your song goes up on the day you set, no matter what. But if you don't give it enough time, the people at Spotify don't have time to hear your song. They get millions of submissions. So to me, I'm saying to artists, like, give it as much time as possible. Give the people, the higher ups or whoever's picking the playlist, give them time to actually go through your submission. If you give it like a month or two, then there's a higher chance of actually getting put on those things, because otherwise you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
And then along with that, I will also say, once a song's out, don't stop promoting it. I still post about music I released 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I realize there's so many people that haven't heard it yet. They might be fans of my music, but they might only have heard the newer release, or they've heard something from 2019. So there's kind of like, you almost have to assume that people haven't heard it, and sort of like, you can revisit your old catalog. I was at an event recently talking to some rappers who said, yeah, I'm making some TikToks rapping over old tracks from like 5 years ago. And people are like, whoa, this is fresh. Like, I haven't heard this. And just because something to you doesn't feel fresh, it might to someone else, right?
Yeah.
So you have to go into it with that mindset. Like, yes, I've heard my own stuff hundreds of times during the mixing phase and everything, but like, once it's out there, it's like brand new. And like, you have to assume that like people haven't heard of you or haven't heard your songs. So yeah, those two things
somewhere in the world,
yes.
there are still people who are hearing Roxanne for the first time, or Like a Virgin for the first time.
Look at all those YouTube reactions of like, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody first time.
Yeah.
You know, so there's people that just really haven't done, you know, I just heard some of the new Taylor Swift for the first time the other day. I was like, this is really good. Actually, I really liked it.
I haven't heard the new record yet.
I would say I'm not a Swiftie, but actually it's like, some of the stuff on there, I was like, oh, wow, this is like, so, you know, even as big as Taylor Swift is, there's people that haven't listened to that. So I think if that's the case with someone that big, you have to assume, if you're like an up and coming artist, that people won't have heard it, even if they're fans of you, right? There's just so much music all the time being released. So yeah, and then making sure you give it enough time before it goes out to upload. Those are the two things. I see that happening a lot for artists. That's like a real big misstep, I would say. Yeah.
I think I love that you pointed that out, because knowing what that runway needs to look like for success, again, it's one of those things that you don't know who to ask. You don't even necessarily know that you need to ask.
Yeah.
You go by the directions that you might get in the back end of Spotify, and it's going to say it'll take a couple days to upload or whatever. Like, give it 48 hours. Well, that's not actually adequate.
Exactly. And I think too, an issue, and I was talking about this recently with someone about all these topics, is I think a lot of people look at bigger artists like Beyonce and Taylor Swift as like, oh, this is the blueprint for what you're supposed to do. Whereas like, okay, Beyonce she could drop an album in 3 days and no one would know. And then it's just out because there's heavy NDAs. It's like a secret, and then it just comes out.
In fact, I think she did that at one point.
Yeah, she's done it once or twice for sure. And so I think artists see that and they're like, oh, she's very famous and successful. This is what successful artists do. Therefore, okay, I'm just going to drop it and be like, surprise, new song is out. But like,
that's great when you have a following of millions and millions of people.
Exactly. And she can do that, but it's sort of like the rest of the world, the rest of the peasants, we can't do that. So, you really need to believe in yourself and believe in your music and give it some time and give it a little love. And yeah, just because there's a reason why someone like that drops that. And when you're that famous, you can do it. And it's really cool to just say, oh, I've been sitting on 20 songs and like, here they are, boom. That's really exciting for her. But yeah, if you're up and coming, no, do not do that ever until you get to like pretty successful, I would say. Yeah.
If you're running in the same circles as Beyonce and Taylor Swift,
then
then you can go ahead and drop your album with no runway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to circle back. These are questions that I actually normally lead with, but we got into some juicy stuff right off the top, cool. So I skipped them. On the show, the Vocal Lab, our aim is to sort of shine a light into the industry through the lens of what I know now that I wish I'd known then, as we've just been talking about. So with that in mind, if you were starting your career all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, I think I kind of alluded to, I don't know if I would have gone to music school to get a degree. Yeah. I think that, I used to think that there was this path that everyone had to take where it was like, okay, go to music school, finish, do this thing, become a teacher, up this ladder an exact way. But then knowing that now everyone has such a different path, and like some people, some people might play in 2 bands, then they work at a coffee shop. Some people might play in 10 bands and that's all they do. Some people might play in 6 bands and they produce and they teach. Like everyone's life is different, and how you want to set that up is different. And I remember when I was in music school, they made us do this like 2-year plan, 5-year, 10-year, like these are goals. And I remember looking at it a year or 2 ago and I was like, wow, like these 10-year goals, like I already hit those within like 2 years or 3 years, and realizing, oh, okay, I could have actually dreamed bigger. And like, I'm not saying I'm not now, but I think when I was younger, I just sort of thought, okay, these are the only options. Yeah. And realizing now, like, okay, like, yes, the world is big, the music industry is big, but it's actually pretty small as well, because like some of the people that I know are like rubbing shoulders with this, that, and the other. There's like 3 or 4 degrees of separation away sometimes, right? So realizing that and realizing, oh, okay, these things are not that difficult or scary or big. Like, I've done gigs now where it's like you see behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and it's like, oh, like these people are just as disorganized out there. You think it's going to be a certain way, and those are certain things. It's like, oh, I wish I knew this earlier. And also certain gigs that I glamorized when I was younger, and I was like, oh, this is where I want to be. Yeah. And then you actually do the thing and you're like, oh, it's just whatever. It's fine. Like it's not that big a deal. It's kind of refreshing now to kind of have that perspective. So yeah, I think generally that would be my answer to that. So
and conversely, if you were starting all over again, is there anything that you would absolutely do the same all over again in your career?
Yeah, I think like just when I started doing gigs, getting paid, like when I was like 13, I remember going on Craigslist and looking for gigs there. Back when I think that used to be a more viable thing to do, like people looking for a band. So I got gigs through that. I was 13. I was just like spending hours doing that, reaching out, and like I'm grateful I did all that stuff. That's something I do the same, and also just the music that I got into and the influences I have. Yeah, all of that, I would not change a thing there. Yeah.
What do you think creates a career with longevity?
Yeah, I would say having a lot of different skill sets, and not thinking that certain things are below you as well. Like I remember, I think that's twofold, because I think sometimes realizing that you've outgrown certain things as well is important.
Agreed.
But then also not being above certain things, right? So there's certain types of gigs that I won't do now, but there was a time when I did them and I was grateful for the work. Yeah. And I would say I wasn't above that at the time. Especially as someone coming out of jazz school, I think it can be very easy to think, okay, all this music sucks, we won't get into that whole thing, but it's just easy to be like, oh, I am the highbrow art person, and like all these gigs are below me, and this commercialized stuff. But for me, at least, I that help with the longevity piece is just like being open to doing different things and being willing to learn different styles and play different styles. And I think then of also having a sense of like, okay, I've grown past this thing. It's time to move on. Time to set different goals, move to different things. That way also you're not stagnant and you're not, some people end up doing the same thing and they're not happy. They don't want to be there, but they're doing that for 20, 30 years and they're bitter and jaded. And I think it's really important to avoid that.
Yeah.
And avoiding burnout is huge, right? So taking self-care, therapy, rest, eating, going on vacation or just vegging out, doing whatever you need to do. I think if you're burning out and you're always hustling, that's, you're not going to have a long career that way.
I think that brings up actually a really interesting point that doesn't get addressed enough in music, because it's an industry where we all feel like we got to hustle for the gig all the time. And actually building in like sustainable business practices, basically, to be a human being who actually makes it. You know, like not taking... I actually just put a post up the other day about being an introverted performer and how, for me, when I'm doing things like a bunch of podcast interviews or performing on stage or whatever, I have learned, and it took me 30 years to learn it, but I have learned that what I have to do is actually schedule rest time afterwards, because I have to, I can do the thing and be present in the thing and love doing the thing. But if I don't schedule the recovery time afterwards, then I really pay a price. But if I schedule the recovery time afterwards, then I'm good.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I feel like tonight I'm gonna go play Dungeons and Dragons with some friends. You know, to me that's like, it's not necessarily rest, but it's a form of like using my brain in a different way. And I find that things like that have actually been very inspiring to me, and not having to always be like on the clock, obligated to someone else. I even find for myself, taking time to create music for me and just do that, that's a form of rest in some way for me. But then there's days I'm just like, screw everything. I'm not doing anything today at all. I'm just laying in bed, or I'm just on the couch playing a video game, or I'm going to go out for a walk, sit by the water and just sit there, or walk around, smell some flowers, and like not feeling guilty for that. I think it's so easy to feel guilty, and a lot of people fall into that, myself included. But it's okay. And I think we also need to be able to step back and look at ourselves and look at the things we've done and feel proud of ourselves. I have friends who have struggled with mental health and have told me about like feeling suicidal and things. And to me, I just say to them, like, I'm proud of you that you're still alive, that you're still here. That itself is a huge accomplishment. Like, anyone that's alive currently is an accomplishment. There's wars, there's genocides, there's famine, there's pandemics. Like, if you're still alive and have the strength to be here, like, that's an accomplishment. So just that alone, let alone all the other stuff we're all doing in our careers, like, we need to be, we need to thank our bodies and thank ourselves. And I think one way of doing that is just like the recovery time. Yeah. Doing nothing and not, being unapologetic about it. Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to take this moment to mention, because it was thanks to you that I discovered that it existed at all. Existed it? Nope. You know what I meant. Yeah. But you posted about something else. It had to do with a grant thing. So it wasn't about, but the Unison Fund.
Oh, yeah.
But so I don't know if that's just BC or if that is,
I'm not sure,
Canada.
Actually. I think it might be Canada.
But what I want to mention is that through the Unison Fund, there is access to mental health services for musicians.
Wow. I didn't know that, actually. Yeah, that's great.
Like, I think that's actually sort of their main thing.
Wow.
That there is access to mental health services for musicians that are I don't know if it's like sliding scale or no cost or what, but basically they make sure that if you need the services, there's access.
Wow.
And so that feels like a good time to mention
Yeah,
it.
that's amazing. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So yes. Because I think a lot of musicians, especially if you're doing this full time, we don't have benefits and we don't have pension and things like that. So having a service like that, because I know therapy can be very expensive, right? So having something in place, that's wonderful. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting sharing those resources. Like I said, I came across them at all to begin with because you posted something a couple of years ago during the pandemic around a relief.
Yeah, there
fund
was.
that
and I had a few people say, "Oh, wow, I didn't know about this." I don't even know how I first knew, but I was just like, yeah, I think we all need to just share resources too, and not just like gatekeep that. And
totally,
so
totally.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you feel is important for up and coming artists to know that we haven't touched on today?
Listening to your own music and like enjoying it is important, and not worrying. I think people kind of are like, oh, I'm egotistical if I do this, but like, I don't know. I'll just say it. Like a few years ago I did this Spotify Wrapped, and like I was my own top artist. Like on my list of like, these are the artists you listen to most, top for me was Jonny Tobin. And so if that's you, and like, that's okay. Like I think it's good to listen to your own music. And to me, you should enjoy what you make. I think that, if you put something out and you're like, I hate this, it's out. I've met people that have that experience, but I think it should be a goal to try and create music that you really love listening to. Because if you love it, someone else will.
Yeah. I love that. Well, where can people find you? Web, social media, any upcoming shows, things like that?
Yeah. So, yes, JonnyTobin.com, no H in my name, JONNY.
And we will drop all this in the show notes as well.
Okay. Awesome. Jonny Tobin Music on Instagram, TikTok, Jonny Tobin on all streaming platforms and Bandcamp. I do also have physical like vinyl and stuff available. I have merch. I don't know. I closed my merch store down for a bit, but yeah, you can reach out if you want to order some of that. And yeah, I have 2 albums coming out this year. There'll be a single, I think 1 single a month starting in June or July.
Right on.
And then, there'll be like lots and lots and lots to come. So
that's awesome.
Much more from Jonny Tobin.
Love that. Well, we will keep our eyes peeled, and we'll make sure that we post your singles as they come out on our socials and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Jonny. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yes,
really enjoyed this.
I loved this, and grateful that you brought me here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.